24, we're going to start the call the board meeting to order. Today, President Director Hoover was out actually with the suit at a conference. So I will be filling in the very big shoes of doing that. So if we could start with roll call.
Kate Crowe, Director of Second District.
Charlie Simpson, District 3.
So Scott McBeth, Chief of Schools, and began the pronouns, and I'm a designee for the superintendent while she's at the conference.
Terrence Proctor, representing District 4.
Dave Larson in District 5.
Perfect. All right, welcome guests, both online and in person. Looks like we have some new faces that I haven't seen before, so welcome. Glad to see you here. Yes, sir, of course. Please introduce yourself when you get a second here.
David Halleck, Student Representative.
Perfect. All right, we'd like to pass it over to Director Proctor with our land acknowledgement.
Land acknowledgement. We in the Tukwila School District acknowledge that the land where we teach, collaborate, learn, and play is the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish and Muckleshoot people, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish and Muckleshoot tribes. As a public school district, we have a responsibility for the stewardship of this land, and we strive to work alongside the Duwamish and Muckleshoot people who have been living and working here since time immemorial.
Thank you. For those of you who'd like, please join me with Mike Sneed. She's here to my left, to your right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now I'll go back to Director Proctor for our values as a group agreement.
Tukwila School Board values and group agreement. Transparency, courage, righteousness, curiosity, and respect. Transparency, be honest. Speak or communicate with your point of view and why. Explain what you're doing in understandable and more simple terms. Asking clarifying questions and break down what's being said. Courage, speak frankly about the uncomfortable things. Listen deeply. Listen to understand, not just to respond. Minimize multitasking. Embrace the brainstorm. Lean into tough conversations, own mistakes, and address unintentional impact. Righteousness, the relentless pursuit for exploring the right thing to do, to be, or to become. Challenge versus taking the easiest or most cost-effective path. Curiosity, asking questions for understanding, suspending judgment. Respect, or center humanity. Find out what respect means to each other. Active listening, seeing the whole person, recognizing what each of us might be bringing in that day. Ask what would be the impact on you.
Thank you, Director Proctor. Okay, so I would like to get a motion for approval of the agenda today for June 24th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so at this time, we have public comments open, either online or in person. I don't know if we have any here, do we?
Not online, but we have to.
Super, awesome, thank you. All right, so I'll call your name up. Just feel free to come up to the microphone that's right here. We're looking for Amanda Foster. Awesome, thank you.
And if you can state your name and address for the record. Hello, everybody. My name is Amanda Foster Best. My address is 13048 56th Avenue South in Tukwila. So good evening, board members. I'm a little sad the superintendent isn't here, but I understand that she is busy. So my name is Amanda Foster Best, and I've had the honor of serving as the PTA president at Tukwila Elementary for the last year and a half. I have only had so much time to speak, so I will send all of you board members and anyone else that would like a copy, an email, and we do have hard copies as well of my full remarks for tonight. Today I come to you not in anger, but in sadness and with deep reflection. After years of involvement in this district, My husband and I have made the difficult decision to withdraw our children from Tukwila Public Schools. Our journey began in January 2020, when our oldest was enrolled at Tukwila Elementary. Coming from a small town, we were excited by the vibrant and diverse community here. I still remember Mr. Pryor's warm smile on that first day. I even told my husband, I really think we're gonna love it here. And for a time we did. We love the staff at Tukwila. They are dedicated, they are hardworking, and they are caring. But the overall direction of this district, the culture being shaped, and the ongoing safety concerns have led us to a breaking point. And let me explain why. Safety concerns are being swept under the rug. A preschooler wanders off campus unnoticed, and the district remains silent until the media broke the story. There's still no fence in securing our children during recess, and I personally have seen strangers lurking near the woods while children play, and I know that that's been addressed and is on the works. After a homicide occurred just down the street from the middle school and high school, school resumed only after 30 minutes, and we are normalizing trauma, and this isn't safe and this isn't acceptable. I've seen staff pushed to beyond their limits. Our principal is often forced to juggle multiple roles because of chronic understaffing. Teachers are being pulled from their prep time to substitute, and paraeducators are stretched thin. They love our kids, but love alone is not enough, and it can't sustain a broken system. And most of all, I've watched with pain as my children's emotional well-being has been compromised. In 3rd grade, my son was told that because he is white, he must have owned slaves, his family must have owned slaves. And that's simply not true. You're Irish. I wasn't even born in the US. Why aren't schools presenting a full and accurate picture of history, including a global perspective on slavery? Let's also talk about equity. The district often promotes anti-racism, which I support in principle. But when it is applied unfairly or in a one-sided manner, it causes harm. Tukwila School District is made up of only 10.3% white students. That means that the white students are the minority, and yet their feelings are often disregarded. Posters like "End White Supremacy" hang in the elementary hallways, but no context is given. Families have told me that their students feel targeted and unsafe simply because of their skin color. That's not justice, that's just another form of exclusion. And this is just not about white families or white students. I watched a beloved Black paraeducator, someone who shows up every day for our kids, become isolated by coworkers after surviving the district layoffs. Not because she's done anything wrong, but because some of the staff were upset that she survived the layoffs and their friends didn't. This wasn't the only issue she experienced from staff. During field day last year, she was reprimanded by the lead teacher of that event in front of others, students and staff. And how is this acceptable? How does this send a good message to our kids? She told me she no longer feels comfortable working here and she's leaving, and that breaks my heart. Other staff members are leaving as well due to the lack of support from the district. If anti-racism work excludes or alienates anyone for any reason, it's not true equity. I've also seen religious holiday inclusivity be uneven. I love Ramadan. I think the dedication to our community is amazing. I think it's beautiful. Our Muslim population deserves that recognition. But why not also celebrate Diwali, Hanukkah, Christmas, even in a secular way? Representation should be for all. Isn't that what we're teaching our children? I don't claim to know everything that happens behind the scenes, but I do know this. The education and safety being provided in Tukwila is not meeting the standards our children deserve. We decided to enroll our oldest in private school last September because we were not comfortable sending him to Showalter Middle School. Our original plan was to allow our youngest to finish elementary school at Tukwila because we love the staff. But after seeing the incredible transformation in our oldest, how much he has grown academically, emotionally, and socially, we knew we had to give our younger son the same opportunity. So now he too will be attending private school in September. And this wasn't a decision we made lightly, but the contrast has been undeniable. Our children are thriving, happy, motivated, supported, and safe. And while we are grateful for that, it shouldn't take private tuition for our child to feel seen and succeed. That should be a standard here. That's why I'm speaking, not to criticize, but to advocate. Tukwila can do better, and I truly hope it does. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, today we have Todd Best.
Thank you. My name is Todd Best. My address is 13048 56th Avenue South in Tukwila. Good evening. I've had the privilege of serving as the PTA treasurer at Tukwila Elementary for the last 2 years. Tonight, I'm not speaking as a PTA member, but as a parent who has had to make a heartbreaking decision, one I know other families are also grappling with. My wife has already shared why we pulled our children from the Tukwila School District. I won't repeat what she said. Instead, I want to speak to what families are quietly enduring and what's not being addressed by this board. We've watched this district shift away from its core purpose, education, safety, and accountability. I've had teachers tell me they're exhausted, overwhelmed, and under-supported, covering classes during their planning time, losing paraeducators they depend on, and unable to properly discipline students due to fear of administrative backlash. Schools should be places of learning and not politics. Yet we've seen staff wearing shirts with political or ideological messages that reflect only one perspective. Some have even told us they wouldn't feel safe expressing a different viewpoint, even if it's neutral. That's not inclusion, it's pressure to conform. And in a district as beautifully diverse as Tukwila, we must remember that families come from many backgrounds and beliefs. This includes large communities of Muslim and Catholic families whose values may differ from what's being presented in classrooms and hallways. No child or parent should feel alienated because their worldview doesn't match a particular narrative. Schools should be focused on education and not ideology. We've been asked as a PTA to fill in the gaps. Just this year, we were approached by staff requesting translators to help with multilingual students. We were happy to help where we could, but that's a district responsibility. Why is a parent volunteer group being asked to bridge the gap in basic educational support? And speaking of that support, it's not reaching the kids the way it should. Classrooms now combine all skill levels, which means students who are behind are struggling even more, feeling lost and left out. And students that are ahead are become bored, disruptive, or checked out. Teachers are left trying to teach to everyone and end up reaching no one. We say we're equity focused, but in reality, no one is getting what they need. And I want to be clear, we didn't leave this district to run from diversity. We left because our children are not being educated, protected, or treated fairly. The new district we are going to is also just vibrantly diverse, and we are so excited to be a part of it. And we are far from alone. Other families have told us they're either pulling their children now or planning to soon. And do you know what the common thread is? Parents are saying we don't feel like the school cares about education and safety. We're now paying out of pocket for a school that puts academics and student development front and center. And our children are hurt, healing. We are lucky that we have that opportunity, but many parents don't. It hurts that we have had to leave our public school to give them what every child should have for free, a safe, balanced, and high quality education. I urge the board to look around and ask yourselves, how many families have quietly left? How many teachers are burnt out but afraid to speak up? And how many kids are stuck in classrooms that aren't built to serve them? And most importantly, how many more must walk away before something changes? Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a more full set of remarks that will be emailing. We do have a physical copy if anyone would like.
Sure. Yeah, great. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. See what comes and goes. It's exciting to get it in.
And just so you know, this is shown, the superintendent will be seeing it, you know, everything else is as long as the president, so it's not, she's not present. But then we'll see. Thank you. Okay, is there any public comment online? None. If not, then we are going to be moving to our student representative report.
I have nothing to report.
Nothing to report, no summertime fun?
No,
nothing?
I've been in hibernation.
Next report, hibernation, perfect. All right. Are we going to have a superintendent report? Probably not. Are you? You are? Okay, I wasn't sure. All right, so yes. We'll turn it over for.
Thank you. Yes, I'm sharing some remarks that our superintendent put together to share and a couple of comments of my own. First, as we close the school year, I want to begin with deep gratitude for our entire Tukwila community, family, staff, and partners who wrapped around our students every step of the way, from our 8th grade promotion to our immensely prideful high school graduation. This June has been a powerful reminder of what happens when a whole community comes together to uplift and support our scholars. Our students have grown not only in academics, but also athletics, leadership, and community engagement. Their success is a reflection of the tireless commitment of our staff who centered student growth, whether that meant academic progress, social emotional exploration, or cultivating leadership through programs like our Green Schools Initiative. We have so much to be proud of. This year was not without its challenges. As we enter our second year of recovery from significant staff transitions, we continue to assess, adjust, and persevere. I'm proud of how our district responded with compassion, innovation, and a steady focus on student well-being and learning. I want to extend heartfelt thanks to our incredible community partners, City of Tukwila, Highline College, Tukwila Children's Foundation, Stillwaters, and so many others who stepped in with resources, opportunities, and unwavering belief in our students. Your partnership makes a tangible difference every day. Together, we've built something strong, and while there's always more work to do, this season reminds us that we're not doing it alone. We thank you for that. Announcement about summer schedule. Our district office operates on a 4-10 schedule through July 7th through August 8th. It's 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, 10 hours a day. I just also want to add some kudos to our staff who have done an amazing job putting together our summer school program. Last year, I think because of budget constraints, it was about 100 kids or so who were served, and this year we have about 500. So it's huge participation this year and investment by the district in providing the program for our students. Thank you to all the teachers and coordinators who have been working many hours every week to put this together. And also support staff, like our quality engagement specialists, 2 of whom were here. Transportation, nutrition services, we just all work together as a team to make it so all elements of the program are available and those kids are eligible to be in, so we reduce the barriers for them to be able to participate. So thank you, and this again reminds us of what Dr. Pedrosa has said, we are elevating our multilingual learner superpower. That's it for me.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. We're gonna move on to the board of directors report, which I'm gonna start here actually, because if I go this way, then I can end with the legislative update and that would
I'm gonna mess you up. I prefer you start on the other end.
You prefer to start on the other end. Well, then we're gonna do hop in the middle.
Okay.
We're gonna do Proctor, me, you, Larson.
That works.
Perfect. Thank you, Proctor. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Rock, this is for, he appreciates it. Nothing to report.
All right, Charlie District 3. It was good. I saw all you guys up front. I sat in the stands at the graduation and it was super. I'm very thankful that the district heard kind of what we were talking about. The sound system that was there was way better than last year. That was there. Still some things to work on, but it was very good. So it was nice to see. That's it.
Very nice. Back to me.
Yeah. Just
All
like
right,
that.
so commencement was incredible. It was a good experience, and the most important part of the centers are students and scholars who are graduating. It was exciting to be a part of their evolution into adulthood. And I was never more pleased to hear the salutatorian and the valedictorian speeches. There's a lot of other people who won scholarships. Some of you know, I hang out with Rotarians, so there were scholarships that came from there, but there was Bulldog scholarships. There were scholarships coming from every which direction. The number of people who graduated this year was higher than before. There was over 200 people at the commencement with their families, and that just was exciting. Second, Tukwila Promise. There's been a lot of banners and gatherings and pictures and recruiting, and I'm really excited to hear that there's up to 65 people who have a possibility of being part of the program. I think it's 39 to 41, depending on who you talk to, that are actually enrolled and going. That's a lot more than 16 last year. And although I'm just grateful for our partnerships with Highline College and with the city of Tukwila, I just want to say this board stepped forward to also participate. And we haven't banged our drum much, and I'm just going to take this one small squeak and say, well, I'm really proud of the work that's been done here to make that also possible, because it's a 3 or 4 way partnership that makes it possible. Juneteenth, I'm just gonna step out there and say, even though it's a city-sponsored event, there's a lot of people there that are involved, school district-wide, and we're very proud of our culture and, our communities, and it was really great to come together to celebrate that time off. And then, let's see, I know that we have a refugee and immigrant day coming up shortly. Am I right? It's Saturday? We can't wait till that happens, and I just want to step back. We do a lot of rentals of our facilities for a lot of athletic events, et cetera. There was a 3-day event with the Sikh community. It was a basketball event. It's their first time that they've come, and they plan to come back again next year. And I just want to say, not possible unless Foster High School, in the way that we work together, it brings us revenues, but more importantly, it brings us community. So thank you.
Thank you. Director Larson, if you could give your report and then go right into the legislation update, please.
Sure, so, the school districts, I went to, one of their meetings, they're in the process of collecting information from the community with regard to the, the future of the pool, and, there's a lot of people came during that day, gave a lot of good input to it, and so, we'll look forward to they have a consultant that's working on developing recommendations from all the input for the future of the pool, so we'll look forward to hearing about that. At the graduation down at Showware Center.
Yeah, that's sure.
It's interesting, like I don't know how many people know this, but I think every high school in the South End has their graduation at Showware Center. There's like 20 in June, like 24 graduations go through there, including the community colleges. So they run them through there because it turns out it's very efficient and very cost effective to do it because they have it all set up and everybody just goes there and gets it done. And it's nice. In the past, we've had it up at the Foster football stadium, but I mean, there's several problems with that. One is being that not everybody can get in who wants to get in, and with the Showware Center, it's, they can get in, the parking's there, and they really do a good job of managing the parking, and everything just goes really smoothly, which is nice, so. I think one highlight I wanted to do, in addition to what I was talking about, the Tukwila Promise, this is the first year we've done that, and depending on exactly the numbers, there's 38, 40 something or so are taking advantage of that, which is going to be a really good program for students that are going to Highline College and have all those fees paid. And the nice thing is, a lot of times for a lot of our students, transportation is an issue, and the light rail will be opening up their station in Highline College soon, and so it'll be really easy to get to the school as well. The other thing I noticed, for those who may not know, that every year the state awards what's called the Seal of Biliteracy. So these are, gets put on their graduation diploma. These are students who demonstrated, in addition to competency in English, but also demonstrate a high level of competency in another world language. And we always have a lot. This year was 43, so that's about 20% of the graduating class got the Seal of Biliteracy. That's the highest we've ever had. We're usually in the 40s, but that's the highest one we've had. So that was congratulations to our graduating class on that. Let's see. I went to the band concert, and Chen did a really nice job. He combined, they had a combined performance on one of the pieces of the Rainier Symphony, which is our local, I guess, semi-professional, you would call it, symphony that does their concerts in that hall as well. And, it was a piece that required a lot of string instruments, which we don't have any of, but our students who are primarily playing the wind instruments and the brass and the percussion, we got to play with, these other high skill levels in the Rainier Symphony. So that was really good for them to be able to see that. We occasionally over the years combined with the Rainier Symphony, but it's really good for our students when they do that, because they can then kind of see what the next level is going to be. Foster had their STEM fair, which was another really good. There was a lot of robots and things flying around in the common area up there. And a lot of the younger students were there there to hopefully get interested in all the things that are going on. You know, our robotics team is gonna be competing again this year. They're excited to get going again. Lots of CTE programs were highlighted as well. And, the students were doing all the presentations, pretty much all the presentations, which is really great. Congratulations to our, CFO. We had the state auditor come in and gave us a clean audit for, last year, so that's good. I did go up to, it's interesting, I went to Roosevelt High School in Seattle to see how their performance of Hadestown, which is the piece that our drama group is doing next year. Is it still true, Hayden? Yep. And it's a really good piece. I'm looking forward to seeing what our students do with it. Roosevelt is up in a very, I would say, wealthy part of Seattle. And so they have one of the kind of the best drama departments probably on the West Coast. And so it was extremely well done. But there's lots of different ways, lots of different interpretations you can put on it. So it'll be interesting to see what our students come up with. I went to Principal Brett Christopher's retirement at Showalter after 20-something years. And the staff did a really nice job of sending him off with some humor and encouragement for his future. And he's indicated he will be making appearances back here from time to time to help out in places that are needed. So, and as far as the legislature goes, the legislature's out. So I'm using this interim time to try and set the stage for some funding, equity and funding for next year. Next week, I'm going to go down to talk to the executive director of the Washington State School Directors Association to see if I can convince them to be a little more proactive about pushing forward, in particular, the bill that was introduced a couple of years ago for high poverty LAP, which would help us out quite a bit. And I've also got on my list for July to go have a chat with the governor's policy, K-12 policy advisor. And the governor has made several statements that he believes that LAP funding increases are important for the district. So it will be a big deal if this next year will be his first year doing his own budget. Last year, he basically took over Inslee's budget. And so this year he's going to have his own budget. And so I'm hoping that he will propose this increase for LAP high poverty in his budget, in which case it'll have a lot more oomph behind it when it goes to the legislature. So that's my report. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, moving along, we're gonna go to the approval of the warrants, general fund, capital projects fund.
So moved. Now, why are we just doing the whole consent agenda?
I'm gonna do B, C, D, and E together.
I'm just.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
So,
We have a motion and a second.
thank you. All in favor?
Bye.
Aye.
Aye, great. And now, I was gonna ask, thank you. Can we just put B, C, D, and E together since they're all just approval of minutes?
Yeah, basically, that's what a consent agenda is, as we've already said.
All right.
I can hear, so I'll make a motion for the rest of them.
Second.
All in favor?
Bye.
Aye.
Perfect. All right, moving on to board business. Which is basically, here on mine is things that we, kind of a checklist of items that we have, load. And we want to check and make sure the board's following through with, things that we wanted to make sure we got back around on. A lot of times we hear a lot of things and see a lot of different things, and then it gets left. And so this was a way of kind of checking and balancing that. And I'm just wondering, is there anything, any directors have anything they want to comment, anything that we can clean up, or anything that we need to be sure that is seen?
So one thing that I would like to add to this, I was looking at, we were talking about two safety related issues, one of them water quality and in the schools, and the other one is air quality in the schools. And I'm looking, we don't have a board policy directly related to those. And so I'd like to just add an item. I'm gonna be working on, I've got a request into the School Directors Association to see if there's any examples of those at other school districts that we could model after. The water quality is pretty simple. I mean, we're doing it, particularly it's related to lead and water and there's standards that are produced by the State Department of Health, and we've checked and are following all those. So it just, I think we should just put that out in policy so that it stays there and that's our commitment. And then the air quality one's a little more complex. We heard from our facilities director that we have a grant from the state to review ventilation from the perspective of air exchanges. So there's several measures of air quality. Air exchanges per hour is one of them. The problem, that's not the only one, because if you're talking about air exchanges to the outside, that's fine as long as the outside air is good, which we know is not always the case. It wasn't that many years ago that we had, a day where this area had, one of the worst air quality outside in the entire planet. And so that's the other one that's kind of, I think, is missing from our set suite of things. I was listening to a webinar from some people down in Los Angeles, Unified, talk about their air quality standards in classrooms. We need some measurements to actually figure out, and there's measures for this. It's the fine particles they call PM 2.5, PM 10, and check on it anyway. So I want to add to that one to the list as a work item, and I'll mention that to our superintendent, and we'll work on coming up with some proposed bits. I think we can modify one of our existing policies, 6800, to deal with that. So anyway, just want to add that.
Okay.
So I'm gonna comment on that and say, I think we ought to get an entry for each on this particular set of goals, but I think the baseline, setting the baseline ought to be our immediate goal, and I think we gotta, give them some kind of room, so maybe by October. But we talked about things, but I want to see it as an entry.
I remember us having the discussion here and then also with, the director, and then they were talking about, they were doing some, testing, but that there was budgetary, that they gave us kind of the scope of if we had an outside company come in and what something like that would cost.
Right.
I think, I don't know that it got any further than that, unless everybody else can remember, but I don't think we ever got a hard number, so I think we probably do need to work on this over the summer and then see what the resources are, especially if you've already gotten a grant to get some of this, and then see what could go. So I agree with Director Larson that we should at least, let's be presented with currently what we're doing, what the grant is going to afford us to do, and then what our goals as a board, right? Or two, so.
And that sounds good, but I want to see 2 rows on these goals.
Okay.
That we're setting down for air quality and water quality. We've been talking for 3 months about this.
Yeah, water
I come
quality.
from a world where it says if you don't measure it, it doesn't get done.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see it there, and I'd like us to see that our first goal is to get a baseline. And however we go about that, or however long, we can talk to our superintendent and staff and figure out how to get there. But if we don't put it down here,
Mhm.
it ain't getting done.
Then let's add it, we can do that now. So let's add it to our board, business and discussion. Well, I agree, let's get 2 line items on it, and then we'll identify them. We'll put them there.
And I appreciate Director Larson saying that's related to 6800. So we ought to just mark that on both.
Perfect, done. All right, I'm looking at policy 6550 that's on here, and we were supposed to get an update 7/22, right, 2025, so that will be coming up. I just want to make sure that the staff are kind of working at the final cost on that, because that would be a month from now. And so, and then we were supposed to have a draft for our cell phone policy. Wondering if that, yep, super, we have it, awesome, okay, so that will be part of it today, perfect. And, yep, and then our fiscal oversight discussion also, which we're gonna have that today too, so we're looking good, so we can just add the 2 line items, I think, on there, Director Larson, perfect, thank you. All right, is there any other questions or comments before we move off of board business? Okay, if not, then we're going to move on to B, which is the TSD lease agreement and parking. 2025. Any thoughts, questions, or comments?
So I know that we've had a discussion. I know that the pool made a proposal. I know we have what we have here on paper. But I would love to hear feedback from the pool.
Are you guys prepared to give feedback while we're here?
I did not, I'm here to observe.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay,
Okay.
All I can say is it's different than what we were.
Correct. That's why I'm
Yeah, my understanding,
concerned about.
the proposal was made.
Hmm.
We discussed it,
and it was countered.
and we discussed it with council,
Mhm.
made our suggestion, took the legal advice, amended it, and sent it back to their team.
Correct,
That's what this is.
correct.
Mhm.
So I don't even think it would be fair for them
To
to
go
speak
through.
to
I would
it
agree.
unless.
Perhaps not, but I'm also very concerned about what the feedback is.
Yeah,
We need to find a mechanism. It can't be this concept. We sent them, where they countered. We don't know anything about it, and here's our new offer. That just doesn't feel good.
Yes, but we're paying the legal counsel to help with the negotiations, we gotta let them do it.
I'm good with them to negotiate, but we should be updated, because in the end, council doesn't make the vote.
I understand, but my understanding is this is the update
Yeah,
of our proposal. And their team, it's actually a counter to what they presented.
okay.
So actually, this is our response to what they presented. And we, as of yet, as about my last one-on-one with Dr. Pedrosa, we haven't heard their response yet. But I'm sure we will.
And if that's the status, I'm fine. I read this and I'm fine with what we proposed. I just am eager to hear
Yeah, yeah,
from the horse's mouth.
Yeah.
We can filter it through our counselors and our superintendent all we want, but in the end, we decide, and I'd like to know what their sensibilities are. They held a public meeting, they asked for survey input on their future as well. And so a lot's been going on this week, and I'm very curious about where we all sit together if we're close.
Point taken.
Don't have to resolve it tonight, I'm just making that point.
Great. So what I heard you say is we're at this lease agreement, we agree this is where it's set. This is the stance of the school board as of now, and then we're waiting, the ball's in their court to hear back from the proposal of what we sent them. Is that right? Okay, great. Any other questions, thoughts? On the lease agreement? Okay, if not, we're gonna move on to our questions only presentation. We're gonna move right into our monthly financial statement. From our CFO. Is there any questions?
Fresh off the clean audit.
Squeaky clean.
That's a big deal.
Yes.
That's a big deal.
Is there any questions? I think the question is gonna be a little bit interesting. So we heard earlier some public comments, about, the difference in happening from our having to do different staffing loss and whatnot. How are we looking for going in the future at our current budget kind of? Can you give us kind of a highlight of where we're, I think, to help the public just better understand kind of our situation, where we were, maybe currently, how it's looking in the future, so maybe people can better understand the state of what.
Okay,
Thank
so,
you.
yeah, Amy Fleming, CFO. So, as you are all well aware, ended the fiscal year 2023 with a negative in fund balance, which put us immediately into funding conditions. the superintendent took immediate steps to at least try to reduce spending, in the 23-24 fiscal year. Which included salary, or freeze, hiring, minimal spending as much as possible. And then as we were developing the budget for this current fiscal year, we had to make significant cuts across the board, because of the financial situation that we were in and loss of some federal, ESSER dollars. And so they were pretty drastic and significant cuts, and, as the parents provided in public comments, class sizes have been a little bit high as a result. But unfortunately, it was the way that we had to go about, just kind of getting back to financial stability so that we are meeting the terms of the writing conditions set forth by the state. If we didn't do that, we would probably be in enhanced financial oversight. There's actually 2 districts now that are in that realm, and I wasn't willing to go down that road. So we are looking better. We are getting much better financially. We have been looking at class sizes and what enrollment could potentially look like next year. And the way it stands right now, the plan is to add at least 1 FTE teacher at both Tukwila and Cascade View to lower some of the class sizes, specifically at those schools. And so the cuts that we took last year, we're obviously not having to take going into this next fiscal year. So that's kind of the high level of where we are and what's going on. We are also adding, towards the end of this year, we added an additional MLL teacher at split between Tukwila and Thorndike. And we'll be adding also an additional position at Cascade View. So that also provides some additional supports to our MLL learners in the district. So that is the plan as we speak.
Perfect. Thank
So
you.
very high level.
Yeah, no, because we can look back onto it, and I remember coming on 2 years ago, and we were like, with loans, 14 million in
Right.
loans.
Yeah.
So it was, so coming out now and looking at where we've come, yes, it's been dramatic, but it's dramatic in many ways, positive and negative. So
Correct. Would agree.
perfect. Thank you very much. I think that's a good.
And I do have to say that this last legislative session was not good for equity and funding in this state, unfortunately. They've created some local levy options that, wealthy areas will be able to take. And they took away a lot of our grants, which were helping, with our higher needs students. And so it's frankly fairly grim in terms of the legislative this session. That's why, I'm working pretty hard to try and for the next session in 26 to try and get some actual funding that would help. I mean, we all know that, our students are not getting the support that they need. And, it's, largely because the state does not have a needs-based funding system. And so they don't recognize that. And it's been going backwards for a few years now, and eventually that kind of stuff catches up to us. And so anyway, I did want to ask a little bit, it's also interesting to me that a lot of these monies that I see here, and this happens kind of every year, is that there's money that doesn't get spent that is, we can't kind of finally spend it until sometimes the state gives us full direction or we turn in our receipts. And so at this time of year, it looks like we aren't spending money,
Right.
but actually, we have plans for it and we're just, it's a little tricky for the board when I'm looking at those and why aren't we spending money? We need it. But it's almost always, as you've indicated in several of your answers here, is we're just, a lot of this money, we're waiting for the state to do something and we anticipate getting it and using it. So anyway.
And I do apologize for the error I made on the grant report for the OSSI grants. I thought I had updated the end dates. I did not, so that'll be reflected on the next month's report. So the end dates on those, just for the record, is September 30th, not June 30th. And so when Director Larson asked a couple of questions, was like, oh, wait, that's an oversight on my part, so I do apologize for that.
The other one we talked about a little bit last time was, the capital projects fund. I think we need a little more, visibility into that, and, you know, we have a good chunk of money sitting there, and I want a little more visibility into what we're actually proposing to use it for. And, you know, I know, I mean, we've actually used some of that fund balance to keep us solvent essentially in recent years. And hopefully, I guess we may have to do one more borrowing of that at some point, maybe.
So I'll answer the second part first, and then I'll go back to the first comment that you made. So, for the record, OSPI sent notification to all school districts in the state of Washington indicating that because of, they have reached their budgetary thresholds, that they had to reduce the June apportionment payment for all school districts by a certain percentage. I think it's like 7%, not 7%. I can't even remember the percentage. So what is getting pushed into July, so we're going to be paid, but it's getting pushed. It's $233,000. However, we received that one-time $50 material supplies and operating costs, which was $133,000. So we do have a little bit of a shortfall that is impacting us now as a result. So if I do have to take a temporary interfund loan, it'll be during the month of July. And I'll make sure that I email you all to let you know what the dollar amount is. And I will be paying that right back in August, just because of the way that schedule is working. So that answers that part. Based on the conversations, capital projects has kind of been on my mind, but because the general fund has been taking so much of my time, my next phase is to really work the capital projects and make sure that that's cleaned up. I believe that there has been some miscoding, especially of our revenues and our investment earnings going to the correct either bond or capital levy. So I need to dive into that and do a lot of research and get that cleaned up. So the fund balances that are reported may not be entirely accurate.
Okay.
I also want to give you an overall bond report to show what we've spent, where we are, and how much is actually remaining. So that was on my list of things to do, to start working on as well.
Yeah.
I want to jump in with 2 questions on the tail end of what you just said. So the reason that we don't have the money in place is because the allocation isn't coming to us as fast as we expected, but we can pay for it.
Oh, yes.
To pay. So that was the first question.
Yes.
And then, on the second piece, I can't help but compare because I've been on the city council. They have a 6-year capital expenditure program plan.
Mhm.
And I think when we listen in more of a macroeconomics point of view, we bring in facilities and they tell us what they're gonna do. We bring in transportation and they say what they're gonna do, but we never back off and say, like, do we have a 1 to 3 year capital expenditure program or a 6-year one? What's required by the law? What does the school do? I just don't.
So we do have a program in place, of all of the items with the expected useful life of equipment, major like, repairs and remodels, end of useful life. And so that is always being looked at. And then also looking at what are emergencies, what are true safety concerns that we need to take care of immediately. So we always have this list, but depending on what's going on, things might get, things might get moved around just depending on what happens within the district.
So you
But there is a
adjust-
plan.
You adjust year to year.
Yes.
And admittedly, the city frankly guesses.
Well,
6
yeah.
years out and it radically changes along the way.
Oh,
too.
yeah, and you're constantly updating those plans. It's a lot, you think of what happens in the next 5, 10 years, but something always
Messes it up.
changes.
And so I'm not criticizing that we don't have a 6-year plan, but do you think we'll get to a point where we'll be reliable enough that we can, and obviously we have measures that come through that have our capital. So those are easy to spot compared to what he's doing. Will there be a point where we can look ahead 3 years, or 4 years? What's the right amount of
Yeah,
time?
so 2026 is right around the corner, and it's about the time you start having conversations about one, the next levy, capital levy, and two, whether we're going to go out to the voters for a potential bond. We all know that Cascade View is on that list. To me, that would be an automatic, but it's going to, and it's, you bring in a company to do analysis on all of your buildings, and everything, and then it's a committee that forms to go through and prioritize these lists and determine the dollar amounts that we think the voters would be willing to approve. And so it's a pretty long process, and during that time, you can really build up your list. So what we would take is what we have and then start making those updates.
And at one time, we invited community, and I got mentioned, because I think I was the president of the council at the time, and I was invited in, so I understand that process.
Yeah.
I apologize, Director Larson, continue with your questions.
No, I was done, yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
No, you're on the right track. We need to kind of clarify the capital projects and it's on your list, so.
yeah, I
I
agree.
understand that general fund is the primary because we need to get a budget out, so,
Exactly.
for this year, so.
Okay, while you're up here, we still have the financial forecast. We kind of did go over it right now, but is there any questions from any directors or our CFO on the financial forecast? You did a good job, I think, for where we should be. Thank you. All right, so we will move on to our McKinney-Vento presentation. Have anyone who's running? Mary Ann Abdullah and Julie, is that right? Please come on up and introduce yourselves, please.
Hello, I am Maria Abdul, and I'm the quality engagement specialist for families and students up to second year.
And I'm Julie Hurt, and I'm the quality engagement specialist at the elementaries.
Is there any questions?
Yeah, so I just want to point out that for another year, so Tupelo has always had one of the highest four-year graduation rates for McKinney-Vento students in the state. And I looked up again this year, we're, I think in the top 15%, like 81%, there's the highest in the state is like 89 or something. And I mean, it's been consistent year after year after year, and that's not by accident. And it's these two folks here. It's actually even more. It's the Stillwater that's involved in helping to provide food for those students during the summer and the regular year on the weekends. It's also the food bank or the clothing banks that we have. And it's also the transportation department that makes sure the students get to school every day. And it's just, all the staff is, I think, always been attuned, since there's always been a high level of McKinney-Vento students in this district in comparison to around us. And so I think the staff has been attuned to that need for many years. And so I think it's a great thing to celebrate. And Marianne, of course, was recognized again this year, as I thought. I mean, I always thought that both of them should be recognized at the same time, so they've been recognized back to back, which is perfect. So, anyway, yeah, we need to kind of celebrate that each year, and that continues and I continued again this year. So, good job.
From my end, the excellence is apparent. But I'm always gonna say, what ways can the board support you better? Or what things would you have done this time, from a lessons learned point of view, that you wish you'd have done that you didn't do?
From the graduation requirement already.
You pick your area.
Or just the program entire.
Yes.
From the board.
What you need from the board, and what do you wish you'd have done upon reflection, even though it's excellent?
I mean, I definitely appreciate when I see you guys in our buildings and we're able to point out, you guys are very engaged in our buildings. I tend to see you guys a lot. So that's definitely something I appreciate. We appreciate seeing, I mean, the only thing, our numbers are growing, each year, because it's Julie and I, and we're a great team. We work together, but it's a lot of stress. It does burn us out. We're hoping after we get this, new grants that we are hoping to get, that we will have a part-time to just help with the callback in August. When we come back, we have to call in a short period while getting ready for families and teachers and training. We also have to call 500 and students and families to see where their situation is and when they're gonna return. And that takes a lot. Sometimes we're running it all the way to October to September because just a lot happens as you return. So many new students are coming in. We still have to re-qualify everyone. And so it does, our numbers in October where the state takes doesn't reflect our numbers at the end. And if we were able to get some assistance, which Julie and I could appreciate, maybe something like that to advocate. We are working with our supervisor and that's something we're looking at, but that's something we would ask for if we weren't already in the process of it.
Did I hear you said there's a grant coming to Coyle?
We should.
HSSEP, grant is coming again, so we are.
This is the one that's been there for a number of years.
Well,
no,
that's
a
the
different
homeless grant one, which we should still,
Yeah.
we're applying for it, or we should receive as well. That's the 3-year program.
The sub grant.
The
So
sub grant.
that one is, we have enough, we qualify for, up to, 80,000 a year for the next 3 years, so then we can even just sub grant. And then we could also qualify for up to 80,000 for the next,
HSSE.
for the HSSEP. Is that 1 or 2 years?
That's 1 year, each
1
year
year.
we have to go.
So
Yeah, apply for
is
that.
that a new one?
So the
We have that this year
HSSEP,
too.
is one that we had this year. But the sub grant, we have it in the past, but, last time that the sub grant came available, there was, a delay in submitting and the way that the state system works, and it was just 3 years ago, and they had just started that system. Our business office had signed off and submitted 5 minutes late, and and they wouldn't let us submit. So we haven't had it for the last 3 years. And so we're hoping that we'll get it again. But just another thing that we were talking about, like the numbers. So on average, so this has been my 8th year in this position. In the first 3 years that I was here, the average numbers were like 250 to 300, right? So if you're looking at on the data that we gave you, in 22-23, we had 387, which was the highest at that point. Last year, we ended the year with 671. That was the 23-24 year. This year, even though we expected, because we don't have the asylum seeking encampment, and a lot of our students had moved to different areas, we still are ending the year this year with 574 students. Do we see that going down? Unfortunately, we don't. And the reason why we don't see that going down is because of the Section 8 emergency housing vouchers they're not being renewed. So we're going to see a lot of families that are in Section 8 housing at this time that are not going to have that voucher available to them, and they're going to lose housing. So we don't really see that number going down a whole lot, but we're still the same team doing that same work, going from 250 students to going to, 574, last year 671. And so that's why Marian's saying that it'd be nice to have a little bit of help, because we have to, at the beginning of the year, we have to re-qualify all of those things. We have to contact every single one of them, see if they still qualify, see if they're still in the same position that they were last year. And then that's also setting up transportation.
Right.
So we have to put in transportation, especially for our students that are out of district, or students that are, they all need a transportation request. So that's setting that up before we even start school, in order for them to make it the first day and be successful.
And I just want to point out that the state does not fund a McKinney-Vento liaison, which is kind of what, I mean, you guys do other things, but that's among the things that you do. The state doesn't fund that, and in particular, it doesn't fund it based on the percentage of students. I mean, it should be based on student need. If we have a high number of students, we should get a lot more money. The state doesn't do that, and it doesn't fund any of that, and so we're having to fund it out of funds that are meant for academic improvement, like learning assistance programs, Title I, things. And so this is why, we get a stressed staff and so forth, because, there isn't the money to spend on what we want to be spending on the academics. But this is what I call basic human needs. You can't do the academics if students are not, if they're worrying about where their new food is gonna come from, or they're worried whether they're gonna sleep tonight, So we don't have a choice. We have to do this work. And so anyway, we broached that subject with the legislators. We brought 3 of them in here last year and trying to convince them that they should fund this, and they didn't. And so, but that's gonna be an ongoing discussion, but anyway.
Congratulations on your award this year, and recognize that last year you won the award, so we've got the best team, I think, in the state. Yeah.
Is there any more questions for our guests? Comments, thoughts? Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, moving on to 8B. Our own chief of academics, Heather Beck, on our chronic absenteeism and early warning. Is there any questions or comments?
So I guess this, when you look at the, attendance numbers, which is, there's a state trend and national trend that everybody has, that, if you go pre-COVID, numbers were pretty high, and as soon as COVID hit, everything went down. And it stayed down, and it's starting to creep back up in a few places, but I think we need to spend, some more time studying, what's going on with our attendance numbers. Now, I see there's some reports that some of the attendance numbers were not correct. Like I noticed Tuckahoe Elementary was way up there. And so my immediate reaction, well, how come, what are they doing? They're way up there. And so apparently some of those numbers weren't correct, so we need to figure out that. But, there's some basic, and I think, again, this is not just us, but some fundamental things that happened to students during COVID that we're still trying to understand. I mean, one of them, I kind of get, there's more reluctance. I mean, if you're not feeling well, don't come to school, so much as before COVID. I get that, but I think it's more than that. I think there's, we really need to get under, and I don't know, maybe if you have any ideas about, and getting input from other students about, I mean, the attendance numbers at Foster are pretty low in general, in terms of when I talk about regular attendance that is coming, pretty much every day. And I think I'm really curious as to what students are thinking about, why they're not coming to school. Are there some other, you don't necessarily need to answer right now, but that's something that I think we need to understand, because it's hard to get academic numbers up if the students aren't coming to school. And so we really need to understand that. And of course, as always, during COVID, who got hit the hardest? It's the low income families. I mean, that's always the way it goes. And so, some of the higher income places are recovering, more quickly. And so I'm just really, I think we need to spend some time, figuring out are there disproportionate groups that are being represented or underrepresented in attendance, and then figure out some strategies. I actually kind of posed this question to ChatGPT to see what the AI solution was, and they came up with a bunch of good solutions. One of the things they pointed out was Tacoma School District that is focusing on this, and they're using data to focus on who are we, should we be focusing on? Should we be focusing on McKinney-Vento students? Should we be focusing on MLL students? Should we, where are the groups that we should start? It's a pretty big problem. So anyway, I just hope that we can spend, some time really, kind of asking students, maybe, doing some street data work to figure out, why they're in school. And in some cases, it's, importance of families, making sure that families understand how important it is to go to school. So anyway, that's just, because these attendance numbers are quite, kind of alarming and low, and, we need to figure out kind of what's going on there.
I agree, and that, I agree that is a, perfect place to start a street data asking students, so. Student Director Halleck, I'll probably be asking you and Ms. De La Cruz and your other classmates for some input on that a little bit.
You're probably the student that attends pretty regularly, but
Oh, I mean, I've had a lot of health issues this year and it has affected
Okay,
my
yeah.
attendance, but, and I know other students, in similar classes like me, they take health more seriously, so that is a legitimate thing that is happening.
yeah,
As for, non-honors classes, I don't know what the picture looks like, but I know in the classes I attend, attendance is very, at least what I can see, seems very regular for every student in like honors AP classes. So yeah, I could definitely source some information and try and get that back to you about, because I do know some friends that struggle with chronic absenteeism and see, what's kind of going on. I mean, this is more of an anecdote, but I have a friend who's a sophomore who, had a lot of family crises and then he started failing his classes and then he didn't feel motivated to go to school because he was failing his classes. And it was kind of this slippery slope of he didn't have the support he needed to re-enter school. So he kind of just gave up on himself because he didn't feel the support coming from his teachers, to get him back into the learning environment. But, I'd have to ask a lot more people to get any real information to you other than anecdotes.
Thank you.
yeah, it would be interesting to focus on classes as well. There's certain classes, like the AP classes are all good attendance, and then maybe it's other classes that are, having issues and trying to figure out, what this, because it's tough to provide the appropriate level of support if you don't know exactly where the problem is. And so I think the more we can do that, because we know we're short on support, but we need to figure out where we get the biggest bang for the buck and go there first. So.
Okay, perfect. Is there any more questions, comments?
Regarding attendance, one of the things I would like to add, let's say, is we don't have, in our buildings prior to COVID, we had a lot of awareness about attendance, especially in September, we partnered with King County and we did a lot of work with the entire team in each building and it was very visible. And there was competitions and things that were prize booth was in the buildings. And I think coming back to COVID, when we returned, none of that was visible. And it makes sense, a lot of us after the cuts, it's just as hard to take on things. But I think that's something as staff, ourselves, that we talked about it this year and we're trying to see how, with all the work we do, how we can support, we can guarantee, but we want to make September more visible with attendance, September being an attendance awareness month. So I think that's one thing, it's just not visible.
Yeah.
Students react to when things are visible and how important the posters, when you're hearing it, it's like, no, like I have to go to school because they talk about this. When the silence is where it's just not noticed.
Yeah,
In class competitions at the elementary level, we send a lot of those for attendance, so, and they're just really ready there.
and it has gotten trickier with the health. Formerly, you come to school even if you're not feeling well. Now, maybe we know. So it's a trickier issue, but yeah, I think that's good ideas. We need all the good ideas we can muster to, you know.
Okay, so just what I heard, just going back over. Director Chief Levesque is that you're gonna meet with the students, we're gonna talk about maybe getting some September awareness, maybe you can work on that in the summer. And get some ideas of trying to do it, right?
I think also teach the principals and teachers and support staff. I think we're gonna get good ideas all around.
Yeah, about trying to make it,
Would be helpful.
okay.
Yeah.
And then
We'll
we'll
reach out to a lot of groups.
reach out to our hibernating students over here. Perfect. Wonderful, all right.
I guess one other.
Yep.
I did want to suggest, this is on the different, this particular one is a collection of attendance and also dual credit. I noticed that the dual credit at the state level, which says AP is part of dual credit, but it's not showing up on the reports. I would suggest you need to call or just send a note down to OSBI, do it from time to time when they see the inconsistency in their data. Because AP is a fairly significant part of our dual credit program. I mean, I know we're in the process of shifting to college and high school, but we need to get them, they probably just aren't aware of it. The reports don't show the AP thing, so a quick note down to them, I think a lot of times that suffices, so we can actually see. I mean, we should know what our AP numbers are anyway, but
Right.
because we're the one that report.
We have this not in, and
Yeah.
referred to, Ms. Abrahamian, our data specialist, said the OSPI report card removed AP from their visuals.
Yeah,
So,
right,
yeah,
Yeah.
so that, since we don't have that, I mean, I think we have to dig for it elsewhere.
Yeah,
We can
yeah.
still get it.
yeah, right. Because that's a trend I kind of want to watch because, you know, if we need to make sure that our college, I mean, my understanding from what the high school is working on is they're trying to increase their college in the high school, which is great. And then that's gonna take a little bit out of AP, but I wanna make sure those
Yes.
numbers are kind of going in parallel or something like that. To make sure that our students, because that's one thing we hear from our students is that they want more opportunities for dual credit courses. And so we need to make sure that we're not, if we're de-emphasizing AP, that we're, you know, emphasizing the other ones sufficiently to get that out as well. And there's I see there's a lot of, CT tech prep that's going strong, which is great. Good growth in that number as well. That was it.
That's it, great. Okay, if there's nothing else, we're gonna move on to policy number 245, student film communications, first review. I'm gonna actually jump right over into, have you seen this?
Yeah, I read it all.
What did you think? Because I'm curious about the student's perspective of it.
I read it and I was very relieved. I thought it, covered all of my concerns about, a potential cell phone policy. I think it's fair. I think, it aligns with, what other students I've talked to, what they think would be fair. I have no concerns. I think it's a good policy.
Do you think it'll be easy for, one other question while I got you on the hot seat? As far as students and being able to follow the policy and then it not being a issue, you know what I mean? Because we're gonna have a policy, anything's gonna change, right? The dynamic. So the issue, what do you think may help that, ease that a little bit? Do we need to get some more awareness out about it? Do we wanna have, I don't know. So I guess I punt the ball over to you and thinking, what do you think may help with this? To move this along? So I agree, I think this is needed.
Of course, I can't speak for, anything below the high school, but I mean, I think even implementation will probably be rough, but I think Foster, they're already implementing the cell phone pound policy and I don't see, this is more just, it feels like making something that's already happening official.
Mhm.
So I don't think there will be really any too serious changes other than making it more of an official kind of thing. I think, teachers need, they probably need some training to make sure, they know how to, get someone to put it away and de-escalate that type of situation, because I know, if you are, there's more an official policy, taking the cell phone away can get more aggravated, more antagonistic. So de-escalating those sort of situations would probably be, a good step, in making sure teachers feel prepared to do that sort of thing. And actually, so that the policy isn't just a piece of paper, they're actually following through with the policy. And they're able to, and feel prepared to actually implement it.
Thank you. I'm gonna call him Jeff. What do you think as far as a teacher? In there, how are you feeling? And I just want to get a sense, because we got a nice unique balance of teacher and student in here. What's your sense?
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. I think what I see on the daily is, students who are addicted to technology. Regardless of what's happening in the class, how engaging it is, there are still students who are glued to their phones. So I think it's gonna be a huge shift, but I think it's a necessary shift. When I think about how my students engaged prior to COVID and how they're engaging now, it's totally different. And the global pandemic, learning online, that's had its consequences. So what does it look like to break that cycle? I think being intentional around having this policy for, being intentional around what does cell phone use look like in the classroom? What does appropriate use look like? And I don't think there is an appropriate use. Even when you have a carve out, I didn't see it, I don't know if it's in the policy, but even a carve out for like using your phone to translate, we have those tools in the class that we don't have to have students rely on their cell phones anymore. We have the tools necessary for students to be successful without using their phones. What I've heard from people in my life or experience, they're thinking about what about in emergency situations if something happens. I'm not gonna guard the cell phones for my students during an emergency situation. I want them to communicate with their families, let them know that they're safe. So I think having the cell phones right now in the history classes or in the social studies classes, they have pouches, some type of policy like this. Now, there's always gonna be students who are gonna kind of push those boundaries, bringing, some of them have them in their phones that they just put in and they use their phone into the desk. Whatever, we're creating a policy that's gonna hit a majority of the students. I think this one is.
Great. Thank you. So I'm looking right at the policy D, with teacher permission, scholars may use personal electronic devices during class for instructional or educational use. You know what I mean? So it's gonna be open-ended, it's gonna be up to you, the teacher in the class, to determine individually. And so I think, which kind of brings me to the idea corporately, you got, what I mean, what's kind of the teacher is going to kind of do together, I think would probably be best, because then you're gonna have favorite classes and not, ones that can and can't. So that'll be interesting. I look forward to seeing how it's gonna go. I agree, those is the necessary stuff that we need to get going, and so we'll work together to make the best of it.
Yeah, I think in my experience from, I guess, I'm getting old. When I stopped teaching, this wasn't an issue. That might be wise. But if it's not across the board in the building, that'll create problems, because if Mr. So-and-so allows us when we're done, and that's all policy, subsection D. And then, and, just navigating education in the global pandemic, we're part of the problem. We already had a generation that's tied to these apparatus. And of course, that was our only mechanism connected with them. But now, we were talking about at the graduation, this is like the second class who came through high school on those digital umbilical cords, and it's a challenge. So, but I think something is necessary to codify to bring it back to. I mean, we have to teach it like 37-second animation attention span. Because TikTok, all of that, so, yeah, we gotta break the cycle some kind of way. And again, it's a pilot for a year, and we'll figure out and make some adjustments, and something has to be done.
So I think there's some no-brainers, like when you get with the culinary arts lady, you're busy cooking, man. You can't be pulling out your phone over a hot steaming pot, right? Or.
Yeah, but we use it to look at recipes and how long.
Yep, 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 yep.
And so,
But she puts it in pocket,
Yeah,
because she
my-
got the recipe she wants them to learn in the class, and they follow. You can't do it in PE, right? You can't play basketball, shoot a hoop, and look at your phone at the same time.
You'd be
So. You got some kind of business to do with that, I guess.
Two wrestling shorts have a pocket with a phone.
Not if they wanna win.
And then you got your Apple Watch that's
Well,
connected to the thing. And
Well, Director Brecker, that's exactly where you're headed. A
it's-
lot of people wear one, so I'm happy with this start, because I know the schools that are adopting these policies, and the students are openly saying that they appreciate them because they're able to focus better. I work from home. I gotta turn that TV off in the morning, and I set up my morning news at, 5:30, and then I gotta turn it off when I get going at 7. And I gotta ignore all my friends saying, oh, they're bombing Iran or whatever's going on, right? Because I need to get my steering committee report together in time. And so I turn off my phone, and I take this watch and I put it on the charger. That's how I do it. I think it will evolve if the student really wants to succeed. The hardest part is what you just talked about, was the teacher puts it on the teacher's shoulder to play the disciplinarian on this thing. And it's really unfair, because there's no equity with this. Sure, I'll put my phone over there and I'll be looking at my messages the whole time. So, I am excited that we're making this move. I hope the students appreciate what it's about, and they'll see peers across other schools doing the same thing. And hopefully they'll see the ones who are succeeding doing the same thing. But I love that there's open-mindedness to, like, when there's if there's a lockdown, I want my kid on the phone telling me they're okay. So I'm glad there's some open-mindedness there. But we need to ease into this any way we can, and we need to listen to our faculty and staff
Yeah.
to see what adjustments we need to make.
Well, and I think
And the students.
Aiden landed on something very, very profound. There's gonna be some onboarding for the staff, because there, as the kids call it, there's gonna be invariable crash outs.
Mhm.
Did I say it right? Aiden? I'm trying to hear. There's gonna be meltdowns around those phones, and if we're not together as a staff on how we're handling it, as you said, as a teacher, sometimes it's not even worth that fight, but it is. Those who work from home, and I can't, because it's too much, but we're adults, we've developed that discipline. But we're talking about students who we are a part of them developing that discipline.
Parents got to
And so yeah, I think some codifying of how we're gonna handle it in our building, and training and troubleshooting on how, because they're saying that there's some neurological transformation taking place by the time they're still on that screen. So how does that affect the crash outs? How does that affect all of that? We gotta navigate that. So it's important. It's affecting education, but I think this is a great step.
And we know initiate any new major initiative, especially when it's district-wide, we know first year, it's going to be good intentions, a good effort, and it's still gonna get messy. It always does. So if we go into it thinking it should start out perfect, we're just gonna think we'll feel like we failed. Go into it saying we have a really good structure, but we have to be ready to flex and adapt based on things maybe we couldn't have predicted that have come up. Then it's gonna be, we're all learning as we go, but it will be a success because we started with something good and we keep making it better. I think we're in the parameters of what the policy says, and if we, schools kind of band together and say, okay, together as a staff, even parts of this I don't love, I wouldn't be inside a charter school, I wouldn't have that rule in there, but I'm part of the fellow district, I'm part of Foster High School, and I will support it. So then we're gonna be open out, fine.
I would add that the Woodlock, they also is, if we're waiting to get it perfect before you do anything, a lot of damage can take place.
Yes.
Definitely between charter school and private school. So I taught in private school. We just say no.
Mhm.
That's your student handbook. Next question.
Yeah.
The challenge with the public school is that it comes with a certain liberty and privilege that you think you get to do.
Yes.
So these are the storms we get to navigate. And again, if we wait till something perfect before you do anything, there's a lot of collateral damage that takes place in the meantime. So let's got something good to build on.
Maybe I can just add, I know from the parent advisory committee, we got some good feedback, just some concerns about, having access, like, for example, is the iWatch. I'm sounding really old now, that I don't know the name of it. I don't know any little young children at home, but, you know, that might be a thing that some families use, so we make sure they're safe and, you know, in a, close, supervision of a trusted adult. So that's something we have to talk about to see what, is there have to be some kind of adaptation for the youngest children? It's not, that would be part of what becomes procedure. This is a policy, but that might be some details to see. So it's, that's just an issue that came up that I think is really worth digging into.
And then I'm gonna assume in this, because you're with our principals, you're already talking with their principals and they're gonna be having the staff and getting on board, because I know you meet with the principals and you're
Right.
supervising them, so.
Yeah.
I'm sure that we're working towards that.
And even our summer leadership retreat would be the right time to really take some time to dig into it. So principals still confident, they can ask questions and they know kind of what their parameters are and how they will plan together, how they're gonna go forward and be consistent as a whole group in their own schools.
Yeah, it would be interesting, because I know this is gonna affect because a lot of our data that we have on here, right, is gonna be the write-ups and different things, and we're looking at those, and we went through that last year. So I know there was some differences between schools, kind of how they dealt with it, and so it would be good if we could
Get on
get on board together and making sure that we're, doing the same. Great.
The good
Any
news is
other-
that, the good news is that every school district in the state has the same issue.
Yeah.
And so there's gonna be lots of ideas floating around about how to solve things as they come up, that they inevitably will.
Great.
And a lot of times there's pushbacks from parents, I'm like, kid, you and I both know you want your kid off the phone, stuff like. You can't get him off the phone. But there is that sensitivity in case of emergency, but usually when it's a case of emergency, they need to hear from the district, what is the district's where we at, and I don't necessarily know that they trust that line of communication.
One big thing along that line is all of our schools have landlines in all the rooms, which is helpful. We know it's like Tukwila Elementary, it's infamous for having very poor cell service. I tested when I first came to district 2 years, so walk around, like there's 5 spots in the school I can make a call from, so. And other people tell me, yes, that's what they've experienced too.
It is
And that
terrible.
is one downside, so we still have to really remember, we always have a landline to use.
I've been in the building trying to figure out where I'm supposed to go and we lost 30 minutes and get to the classroom and Mr. Page is like, oh, you texted me. That was 30 minutes ago. I found it. So yeah, I thought that was on purpose. I thought you guys had scrambled over the building. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
All right.
Sorry for that.
Any other scramblers in the building?
Yeah, I was like, that's pretty much it. But again, the kids figure it out. They'll connect to the Wi-Fi. They'll figure it out before we do.
Yeah.
But that's all I am.
Okay, moving on from the telecommunications, we all agree that it's good, and we're gonna move forward, and get some things worked out over the summer. Put it into action. We're gonna go to the general fund reserve second review. Is there any questions for our CFO?
That's the 4 to 6, right?
Pardon?
The 4 to 6?
No, so
No, 6.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
recommended by the board.
That's what we talked about, okay.
And it's revenue, not expenditures.
Yeah.
Alright.
Definitely. Great.
Got my vote for record.
Yeah, no, perfect. I think, just real quick, just for clarity. So, in context, right? So what we're talking about is basically the board has always had in the past a 6% above budget. So we're always running higher. So we're keeping that 6% of monies there for backfill on things that come up. That was prior to currently, that was all used up plus extra, and that's what put us there. So the focus of this board is to re-solidify with our CFO, getting us back to that 6%, always running so that we don't find ourselves back in here. So we were kind of balancing between 4 and 6, whether it was gonna be on expenditures or the total revenue, and we're really gonna focus on the 6% of the total. So I think that's a great step for Tukwila School District, and I think it'll keep us healthy budget going forward as we make everything. So that's great.
And then the accountability measure, I think, is also been put into play here, which requires us, the superintendent or the CFO to develop a plan if it goes below the 6%. So I think that's also good, because it provides that accountability to say how we're going to get back.
The other part that isn't directly here, but I think we talked about putting in the board,
Yes.
Handbook.
handbook, yeah, so look forward so that, because we want the board to be able to catch problems way before they happen. If they're starting to trend in the wrong direction, that we can address them.
Right.
Yep. Okay, there are no questions? Thank you. Thanks for that. Okay, moving on to our action items. We have the our HR here for the human resource staffing report.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any thoughts, questions, anything? No? All right, we're gonna move on to the approval of policy number 6022, general fund reserve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to C, approval of the out-of-state travel request, the Avid Foster High School going to San Diego.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Oh,
Mhm.
I just want to make a quick comment. So
That's fine.
Discussion, Tracy.
Discussion.
Over. It's been moved and second, open for discussion.
Yeah, that's usually how it goes.
Yeah. So
Before we all agree.
the biggest cost with, Avid, we know, we've talked about it many times over the years, is a really important program for our students because it catches kind of the students that aren't the high achievers necessarily, that middle group of students that need some extra support to be able to get into college and do well when they get in college. And, the biggest cost of this program, unfortunately, is sending the staff to the training and the conferences every year. And a few years ago, they actually have these summer conferences, they call them, summer institutes, I guess is the right term. They have them in various places around the country, and for a couple of years, they had one in Seattle, which was great for us because then you don't have to pay flight and, you kind of cut your costs in 2/3. So unfortunately, and I asked Avid, why they discontinued the Seattle Summer Institute this year, because they said it was kind of low attendance for them. I mean, I don't know into their finances, but the response I got was, okay, the closest one's in San Diego or something, and they are making some attempts to have not maybe a full institute, but some trainings, at different places in this area. So hopefully we'll be able to, we'll do this year. We want to keep Avid strong and going, but at the same time, if we can get the necessary training necessarily without the super high costs, that would be good. And I just hope that we will work with Avid, they're a company out of San Diego, which is nice, to figure out maybe some ways to get that training, a little more efficiently. But yeah, I'm fine with this for this year, so. Just a little context.
Yes.
All in favor?
Right.
Aye.
Okay. All right, moving on to the approval of the overnight travel request for the cheerleader camp, in Holmesburg, Washington.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Discussion.
Go ahead, you got a discussion?
Director, CFO Amy is, I saw you signed off on the other one, I don't see on this one. I want to vote for it, but I didn't.
So this is generally, CFO, this is generally paid for out of the ASB fund, also I think fundraising
Yep.
events. They actually have a pretty successful fireworks fundraising event that they do every year that brings in quite a bit of money. So they have plenty of funds available to.
And for those who don't know, the ASB funds are generally managed
So much.
by students.
My student, yeah.
And I talked to some of our students there. I mean, they're very attuned to, you know, if you bring in somebody, you should get somebody, you know, so.
And they know how much money they're going to.
One unfortunately cheer is very expensive.
Yes, I do know that.
Everything about cheer is expensive.
I do know that.
Yes.
I had a 4-year letter person. And they, each time I bought a uniform, this is the last one, she'll keep it. I got 4.
Change the design, yeah.
I have 4 up there. Look, I'm sorry, I digress. Thank you. I wanted it on the record that as we're approving expenditures, and people are getting cut, that money is made clear that it comes from a different fund.
And our cheer squad did, win a state,
Thank you, for sure.
Call for the vote.
All approve?
Aye.
Okay, great. Now we're going to go on to the approval of contract extension of the superintendent.
So moved.
second.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that brings us to our final item on our agenda today. We are gonna move on to our public comment. The list was taken, so if anyone came and wanted to be on it, or maybe it wasn't taken, maybe we had a backup sheet. So perfect, awesome, all right. And it's all good. Is there anybody online?
Yeah,
Great.
Courtney McKee.
Hello, Miss, Courtney Martinez.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, we're ready for your public comment, thank you.
Perfect. So this is mainly regarding the cell phone policy. I'm a parent of a high school senior who just graduated and a current, well, not current freshman, she's gonna be a sophomore next year. So I'm in agreement that a policy is needed in today's society. And I also agree with Mr. Camacho that there really should never be any reason that a cell phone is used during the school day, but also not even with teacher discretion. Because I was able to interview 13 seniors, 2 sophomores, and 3 freshmen. So I wanted to kind of give the board an insight into how this current year from these students' perspectives has gone with the cell phone policy. So first and foremost, not maybe this policy, but the policy that was put forth to test out or pilot this school year. So first and foremost, some kids in classrooms were allowed to use them while some students were not. Again, speaking back to the equity piece, I believe Pastor Proctor mentioned. Some teachers, not all, some teachers had pocket in front of the classroom. And if your cell phone was not in that pocket, you were marked as absent or tardy. Again, this was not every single teacher that had a pocket, but some would. That resulted that I noticed that you guys had chronic absenteeism as part of your slideshow. So now I kind of called the question that data, considering my child was one of the children that got marked tardy quite frequently because she had her phone stored in her backpack, but would not put it in the pocket chart or pocket whatever up front. The reason that my child dissented in this manner is that I had asked multiple times who is liable then if the phone got lost or damaged while it was not in her possession, and nobody could answer that question for me. And I noticed that this current policy as it's written cites that Tukwila School District takes on no liability in the event that a phone is damaged or stolen or what so have you. And so as a parent, my kid doesn't have like the newest of the newest phone. We don't roll that way, but some of these devices are very expensive. And so I feel like and again, this is like reports from the students that are there. of the inequities of how it was rolled out in this pilot year. And then also about the concerns that like I have and some other parents I spoke to about the liability in making the child relinquish their device. So just some thoughts I have. Again, I 100% agree that a policy is needed. I actually pay, it's like $67.43 annually for an app that I push a button and it locks my child's phone down during certain hours. Those are schooling hours because I want her dialed in and focused on instruction. However, like it's just frustrating that like my kid is being penalized and I'm sure other kids are being penalized similarly or differently because they are unwilling to put the hands of this expensive device in somebody else's care. So it's just something to be thoughtful of. Again, I go back to what Mr. Camacho had said, that there should be no reason why kids are pulling out cell phones. Some of the topics that the students that I interviewed said they use cell phones for were like classroom projects and classroom assignments. I, as a parent, am under the impression that we have one-to-one devices, Chromebook devices in our district. So like I question, why is any child or student being asked to use their personal device to do schoolwork during the school day? Like that's just a question that I have. So if we are truly one-to-one, like why is that even an ask? So again, just want to reiterate, I'm completely on board with having one. I do have some questions and concerns with how the policy itself is worded, and then further concerns with how the policy will be implemented in an equitable manner that doesn't target or over police certain students. Thank you, and I appreciate you for hearing me out.
Thank you.
Thank you. You brought up very good points, and I hope Chief Levesque came back with some of those down.
Yes.
I would be interested to kind of take a poll from the staff of what they did and what worked well and what didn't, and then it will also be good data when she talks about the absenteeism, is that accurate? You know what I mean? If did that take place? Because that's also important data for us to know, and then also how we're working on it. Because of course, I'm back with our student, I don't want our teachers grabbing cell phones from, you know what I mean? We're not gonna put it in there. So there has to be some sort of leverage, and maybe this was one that they were doing for absenteeism, but is that really appropriate gonna work? Probably not. So where's the middle ground to where we can make it work? So I guess this is, like you said, the good thing is, we're not the only one navigating it. There's other districts that are doing it. So I'm sure we'll get through it together. And as long as we communicate and hear from all parties involved.
I was wondering, as I was listening, how it was described. So if I don't have a cell phone, there's no phone for me to put it in the box, am I absent? Like, to assume that everybody has it,
That's wrong too.
iPhone 70,000 or whatever number it is. Like, so there's nuances. And again, I was in the classroom, it was a little more primitive. There was a basket, right? But I know guys that got phone stolen because I go to pick mine, I grab two. Yeah, how do you navigate? Mr. Proctor is so got, my phone was missing. You don't know who it is, but so, yeah, there's some nuances there. And I hope we don't have to deal with this in elementary. And it's erroneous to assume, because I know a lot of people keep tapping for the elementary students. That's fine, and it creates problems in the classroom, so, that's why Scott said, figure all this out. It was, but I appreciate that you dealing with the students, principals, or the advisory board on that. There's nuances to it. Certainly. Thank you. Director,
All right, is there any other, anyone online?
It looked like, Ms. Martinez wanted to speak again. Courtney, if you want to speak again, would you raise your
No,
hand?
no, I'm so sorry. My finger hit the button. I'm sorry.
Okay, great.
what's it take me?
All right, well, if there's no other public comments, then we're gonna close today's meeting.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you. Simpson. Scott, you did well.